the importance of equity. Equity is an essential poker math concept. By continually analyzing the worth of your hand, you can make informed decisions on when to call, fold, bet, raise, re-raise, or go all in. A primary goal in poker is to have money consistently flowing in your direction. Although an obvious statement, analyzing and making decisions based on sound equity concepts are key to ensuring that this occurs. As with everything in this course, the math is a vital component. However, it isn't the only one. Using all of the other information at the table coupled with the math is paramount to becoming a powerful player. Applying the math in a vacuum is a huge mistake. In this section, we will explore several types of equity. They are hand equity, also called pot equity, fold equity, position equity, and situation equity.
Hand equity, sometimes called pot equity, is defined as your percentage probability of winning the pot at any given point in the hand. It is what theoretically belongs to you based on your cards at any point in the hand. It is your probability of success at that point. To understand equity better and to give you a feel for how a typical hand evolves, let's review an example with multiple people in a pot. This is a fun exercise to explore how the equity of each hand changes before the flop, after the turn, and finally, after the river. You can't know exactly what other players have, yet, by observation over time, you can determine the range of hands players might have. The complexity of determining what other players have increases significantly with more players in the hand. Developing a feel for how your hand equity matches up against the range of hands of other players is a skill that high-level players continually strive to improve.
The evolution of a hand. In this first hand, you are dealt pocket aces against pocket queens. Life is good. The probability of you winning is 82% to 18% if the hand goes to showdown. That means that more than 4 to 5 times you're going to win against pocket queens. In this second example, we're going to put 2 more hands in here. The 5-6 of spades against the ace, 10 of clubs against the queens against the aces. Now the equity of the aces has dropped to 50%. The queens are 17%. The 5-6 suited is 21%. And 12% for the ace-10 of clubs. The 5-6 suited has straight potential and also flush potential. The ace-10 suited has a flush potential. The aces have dropped to 50%. The vast majority of equity that the 5-6 and the ace-10 came from the aces, not the queens. The queens only lost 1% of their equity. So this is why it's so important to usually bet aces before the flop. Now let's take a look at the flop. The 4, the 7, the 8. The aces have dropped to 2% equity. The queens 3%. The 5-6 suited is 86% and the ace-10 is 9. What a bummer for the aces. The 5-6 suited is now a straight. The 4, 5-6, 7, 8. Let's go to the turn card. The queen of clubs. The aces are dead in the water. The 2 queens have a 25% probability of winning. The 5-6 suited is still ahead at 58%, and the ace-10 suited has 18% because I'd flush draw. The 5-6 suited, as before, has a straight. The queens have a 25% probability of winning because of the fact that if another queen hits the board, that'll be quads. If a 4, 7, or 8 hit the board, then that'll make the queens full, or basically a full house. So finally, the river card, 8 of clubs. And the hand is over. The aces have lost. The queens have won because the 8 hit, which paired up the board. Now the queens are full and have a full house, as I mentioned. As Doyle Brunson wisely put, try to decide how good your hand is at any given moment. Nothing else matters, nothing.
Equity betting. As noted earlier, your hand equity is what theoretically belongs to you. If you had X-ray vision and were able to see exactly what other players were playing, you would know the equity worth of everyone's hands. This would help you to know when to call, bet, raise, or fold. For example, after the turn, the hand equities are: the pocket aces have 0% probability to win, pocket queens are 25%, 5-6 of spades is 58%, and ace-10 of clubs is 18% probability to win. Since you have pocket aces, you would fold to any bet since you know you are drawing dead. The player holding pocket queens has a 25% hand equity. If the player with 5-6 of spades bets 6,000 into a 7,000 pot, it would become a 13,000 pot. Should the player with pocket queens consider making the call? Let's review the numbers. The player with pocket queens would need to put in 6,000, making the pot 19,000. 13,000 plus 6,000. His pot equity would be 32%, 6,000 divided by 19,000. He might make the call even though he would pay a minus 7% premium, 25% minus 32%, to see the next card. He has good implied odds if the river card gives him a boat or quads. He might get a large number of villain's chips, possibly all of them. He would need to consider his stack size and whether he was willing to chase the boat/quads. Afterthoughts. 4 players in a hand is extremely difficult to put people on hands, yet this exercise provides a bird's eye view of how equities change and what each hand is worth at any time mathematically. The main point of this discussion is that although you can never know exactly what others have, by considering your probable equity, the range of hands other players are playing, and how they bet, call, fold, or raise, you can make informed decisions when determining your next move. It is recommended to try your own examples of hands to get a feel for the probabilities. Fold equity. This is the equity a player can expect to gain due to an opponent folding to a bet, even if the opponent has the best hand at the time. Fold equity is an essential reason why betting is so important. As a note, as an all-in move, fold equity is usually critical. Fold equity isn't an easy number to quantify. It will be based primarily on your perception of the type of opponents you are up against, loose aggressive, tight aggressive, etc. What range of hands does your opponent or opponents have? Whether your opponent or opponents will lay down his or their hands or not. It takes time, experience, patience, as well as trial and error to determine. Betting the right amount without betting too much is both an art and a science. If you are playing someone who frequently folds under pressure, you may be able to properly size your bet to get a fold from that player. For loose aggressive players and calling stations, fold equity is tougher to get. We will dig deeper into some of the mathematical worth of fold equity in an upcoming section called Decision Tree Analysis. Position equity. This is equity you gain since position is power. When you have it, use it. When you don't have it, respect it. There are many great benefits that come with position. First, you can observe how other players play before you. Next, you can play a wider range of hands more confidently. You can use a continuation bet when you made a bet before the flop, when other players have checked, even if you don't hit the flop. As a note, a high percentage of continuation betting is recommended by the experts. I have seen up to a recommended 80% for continuation betting. Fourth, there is more bluffing potential because you can observe how other players reacted after the flop and following streets. And finally, the biggest benefit is that you will probably win most of your chips when you are in position. How much position equity is worth is a difficult number to quantify, just like fold equity. However, it is real and important. Situation equity. This is the equity gained when you can identify and exploit a situation. Much of playing good poker is about playing the player and playing the situation. Good situations are a lot more common than good cards. Taking advantage of them is essential to building large chip stacks. Here are some things to consider. Determine the types of players you're up against at the table. Observe betting, calling, raising, and folding patterns. Keep alert for well-disguised opportunities, scary flops when you are in position, when other players show little interest in the pot, other good situations. Here's an example of a well-disguised opportunity in a good situation. You're on the button with 90,000 in chips. Villain is a loose aggressive player who won't back down easily in the small blind. He has approximately the same number of chips as you. The blinds are 500 and 1,000. You limped in with 5 of spades, 7 of hearts. Then you called a 3x raise from Villain. Everyone else folded. The pot is now 7,000. The flop is multicolored with the 3 of diamonds, 6 of clubs, and the 9 of spades. You have a well-disguised double gut shot straight if you get either a 4 or an 8 on the turn. If Villain bets 3,500 into a 7,000 pot, a 1/2 size pot bet, should you call? There is now 10,500 in the pot, 3,500 plus 7,000. Your probability of hitting either the 4 or 8 on the turn is 8 over 47, it's 17%. The rule of 2, 16%. You have to put in 3,500 in a 10,500 pot to make it 14,000. 3,500 plus 10,500. You would have pot odds of 25%, 3,500 divided by 14,000. In other words, you would have to invest 25% of the pot to get a potential 17% if you get your draw. You would be getting an expectation of minus 8%, 17% minus 25%. Yet, you are against a loose aggressive player who won't back down easily, have good implied odds, position equity, and a good sized stack. These all add up to good situation equity. If you get a straight, you might get a good part of Villain's stack. You might even get his entire stack. Consider calling the bet. Like fold and position equity, it is difficult to quantify exactly how much situation equity is worth. Nevertheless, it is significant. And pardon the pun, it all depends on the situation. This is an important note. When Villain made a 50% bet, it looked like a relatively big bet for you to call with only 8 outs. It would be easy to think, first impression, that you have bad pot and implied odds. However, doing the math shows otherwise. Since Villain bet 50% of the pot, 3,500 in a 7,000 pot, it is now 150% of what it originally was. 10,500 divided by 7,000 equals 150%. If you call the bet, the pot is now 200% of the original amount. 10,500 plus 3,500 equals 14,000. Your call has 25% equity of the final pot, 3,500 divided by 14,000. Also, Villain's original bet of 3,500 is now 25% equity of the final pot. Determining your pot odds and approximating your implied odds is important so you don't lay down a hand too soon when you have reasonable equity to call a bet, especially when you have a good situation. And finally, hand equity, fold equity, position equity, and situation equity are all important principal concepts that can be used to grow larger chip stacks. Understanding them and applying them effectively is a vital skill.